Reef is a game that I became aware of last year at Gen Con when I saw it played there, and I was just impressed by the components. They really caught my eye. They're very attractive. And so recently I saw the game in my friendly local game store and I decided to pick it up, give it a try. And so here we go. I'm gonna tell you what I think about Reef. But before I do so, I want to introduce the game to you. Reef is a simple game of set collection. You will build beautiful coral reefs during the game, and then you will try to place your components on your personal board in forming such patterns that will allow you to score a lot of points. The coral reefs will be built using these really nice looking game components. They're made of sturdy plastic. There are 4 kinds of different types of corals. They're just really good looking, nice to manipulate. They stack well and they look good also when you stack them, as you will do during the game. And you have, as you can see, a large supply of those. Each player has a personal board, and during setup each player places 1 piece of each kind of coral in the middle of their 4x4 board. This is the standard setup. There are different setups that you can experiment with. Then we have cards. Cards will give you the actions that you will perform. We'll talk about the structure of the cards, but for now I want to tell you about the turn structure before telling you what you actually do with the cards. You do have a hand of 2 cards at the beginning of the game in your hand, and when it is your turn you can do one of 2 things. Basically, you can draw a card or you can play a card. If you draw a card, you can draw one from a display of 3 face-up cards. There's also a draw deck, which is face-up. Unusual, isn't it? If you take a card from the display of 3, then you simply replenish the display and you're good to go. You can have up to 4 cards in your hand, so if you have 4, you can't draw, you have to play a card. You can also choose to draw a card from the top of the draw deck. If you do so, you need to spend a victory point token. During the game, players will score patterns, will acquire points, and you'll get those tokens to record those, to keep track of that. And when you take that card, you will place 1 victory point on the card that has the lowest printed values. You can see there are printed values in the bottom right corner of each card. And that also means, back in time, if you draw from these cards here, if there are victory points token on them, you take them together with the card. That balances the fact that some cards may be seen as less powerful. Frankly, I've seen people scoring amazing amounts of points with any card, and I think you could even experiment with just playing like a more traditional game with this deck being face down, and players can draw from those or randomly from the deck. Again, this is the standard game. So this is how cards will get in your hand. And as we said, after that, when you're not drawing, the other option is to play a card. The cards are divided in 2 halves. The first half is the game pieces that you gain when you play the card. After you gain those pieces, suppose that I'm playing this card here, you place them on your board. You can place them anywhere on your board, including on top of other game pieces, forming stacks. And a stack can have up to 4 stories, 4 layers. So if a stack already has 4 pieces in it, you cannot add to it. After you play a card, you get those components, you place them on the board, you can try to score what you have here. That is, if the pattern appears on your board as seen from above, not from the side, as seen from above, if the pattern appears there, then you score the corresponding amount of points. So if I have, for example, here, a purple, which is at least a level 2 on top of something else, adjacent diagonally to a green, which also is a level 2 or higher, then I score 5 points. Oh, look at this. Incredible. I do have that pattern. Hooray. If the pattern shows up multiple times on your board, then you get to score it for each time it appears. Actually, I had that pattern twice now, so that is 10 points. You can only use a game piece to score 1 pattern. So, for example, if this was the case, I couldn't score the diagonal there and the diagonal there using the same stack twice. But here, totally legal. So that's pretty much the general idea. Play a card, get the pieces. Say here I get 2 greens, and then I will get to score 1 point for each red which is visible, which in this case would be 0. I play this card here, gives me 2 yellow, and I will get to score 1 point for each purple that is visible. This one, 6 points for each square of 4 green. They don't have to be all on the same level, again, as long as when you see it from above, you can see the square, then that is what matters. Pretty much this is how you play the game. You continue like this until all pieces of one color have been used. At that point, players still get a chance of scoring the cards that they have in their hand, but differently from before, you can score each pattern on your card only once during that final round. And also different ways of scoring, say this one for game pieces, purple at level 3. This one is for each yellow you have adjacent to your tallest stack with a purple on top. But back to us. You play until all pieces of one color have been assigned. You get one final scoring, but only once for each pattern that you have in your card. And at the point, the player with the highest total of victory points is the winner of the game. Reef is based on such a simple, such an intuitive idea. Draw a card or play a card, and when you play a card, you play the game pieces showed on it, and then you score. So simple. It's an idea that you've seen in so many games also, which I'm not saying in a negative way. I'm just saying it's such a familiar idea that you are already familiar with it. That makes it even easier to get into the game. So simple, you can play with pretty young players. Maybe they will not have the same sophistication in their strategy as adults, but they get the game. And so actually, if just children playing with other children, you don't even have that problem of different skills. Anybody can play this game. However, there is enough there to chew on, enough to really keep you interested, because playing it is easy, playing it efficiently, successfully, well, you still have to apply quite a little bit of strategy there. And of course, the best way to do things is to sequence them so that as you play a card for a resource, you're also scoring the scoring part of the same card. However, the two halves are usually different from one another. So that means that if I'm playing something that gives me yellow, I'm scoring green. And I'm playing something that gives me red, now I'm scoring purple and yellow. So of course you're sequencing them, and that is very, very nice because it really pays off. It almost feels like it's an engine building game, although that's not exactly the same, but it has that idea that you're getting something to use it later and to put things into motion. And sometimes you form patterns that will allow you to score by playing this card. They can score the next 2 cards. It feels a little bit like an engine building, but one in which you don't have to commit so much. In engine building games, you create a little engine and you can't really switch halfway through because you'll never catch up if you start building something else. Here, I build a pattern, I score it once, I use part of the pattern to score again, and then I start building another pattern. I literally build it on top of previous patterns, and so you're constantly changing, regenerating your board. And so there is that reactiveness that is, you may have to change your plans, or it may be desirable to change your plans as you go based on new cards that show up, but then still you have this mid-term, not long-term, but mid-term planning that is satisfying when in fact you create a situation and you score it. And there are some really impressive moments in which you see maybe someone else is creating a mighty pattern that they can score so many times. Maybe because we're particularly friendly groups, we're almost like, whoa, that's great. There's a certain joy in seeing somebody creating mighty patterns, even if you're not the player that's going to benefit from those at the end. So there is that nice element there of planning and yet having to react. Another interesting element of reaction is, of course, in what other players are doing. There's no direct interaction, like in the sense that I'm attacking you or attacking me, but maybe I'm seeing you that there are a lot of pieces of one color on your board and I don't want you to add that card. Maybe I'll take that from the board, from the display, so you don't have it. Even most importantly, the end of the game. Players have a considerable degree of control based on that, because it's about the game pieces that you take. And so if you see players that are just taking a lot of pieces of one color, there is the risk that the game may be over soon, but you don't know it exactly. All you know is that I don't want the game to be over now, so I'm not gonna get pieces of that kind, which incidentally is what I needed to score. So now I may have to change at the last second. I'm collecting cards, but I do not know if I'll actually have time to play them before somebody else ends the game. And maybe they don't wanna end it either. They got those pieces because they needed them, and now they're gonna start getting pieces from other colors so that the game lasts a little longer. The fact that players have a degree of control on the end of the game, and that can be factored into your strategy, to me adds a layer of interest. The game also looks great, so as you can see, I only have good things to say about Reef. I was very pleased that I added it to my collection. I played it in different game nights with different people, some young, some adults. Everybody liked it. There was even a game night where I just left it there, and there were players, casual players that didn't usually play games. They taught it to themselves and they played it no problem. This is really a game for anybody and everybody. It is fun, it is entertaining, it looks great, so definitely positive impression I've had from this game, and definitely recommend it to, I don't know, anybody really. Casual players, committed players that want to have a game that is light but still fun and challenging to play. Well, Reef, it would be a good choice.